Global trade tensions are back in focus. European Union states are holding urgent talks following fresh tariff threats linked to former US President Donald Trump. With memories of past trade wars still fresh, EU leaders are weighing their options: diplomacy, retaliation, or strategic patience. Here's a detailed breakdown from Arise News' The Morning Show.
Tariffs on EU members Denmark, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Finland, along with Britain and Norway until the US is allowed to buy Greenland. Cyprus, hold of the rotating 6-month EU presidency, summoned ambassadors to an emergency meeting in Brussels yesterday as EU leaders stepped up contacts. Although an update on the outcome of the meeting is expected later today, it was learned that EU countries will not yet deploy the anti-coercion instrument in response to Trump's Greenland tariff threats. The EU will prioritize a diplomatic solution, sources said. In other news, here in Nigeria, Kaduna State Governor Senator Uba Sani has reassured President Bola Tinubu that the state would re-elect him in 2027, citing the scale of federal government's projects attracted to Kaduna as evidence of the dividends of democracy. Sani spoke yesterday during a stakeholders' engagement on the ongoing e-registration of members of All Progressives Congress in the state. He said Kaduna State was targeting 2.5 million registered members in the exercise. The governor disclosed that Tinubu approved 1 billion naira in support of the state's light rail project, describing the intervention as unprecedented in northern Nigeria. He said no other subnational government, apart from Lagos State, had received similar federal backing for a light rail project. Similarly, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, said he and others were focused on assisting the president to succeed because if he succeeded, Nigeria too would succeed. However, a presidential aspirant on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Gbenga Hashim, has said the party will win next year's general election despite the legal tussle among its members. He said the PDP would dislodge the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, from power in the general election. Moving on, the Nigerian Air Force has neutralized more than 40 terrorists in coordinated close air support and air interdiction operations at Azur and Musaram areas of Borno. In a statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, NAF, Air Commodore Ehimen Ejodame, the operations were conducted on January 15 and 16 by the air component of Operation Hadin Kai, following actionable intelligence and in close coordination with troops in contact. He said the NAF aircraft swiftly responded to a distress report at Azur, where troops were engaged with terrorists withdrawing from the area. They also neutralized terrorist elements attempting to regroup under nearby tree cover. Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sunday Aneke, reaffirmed the NAF's commitment to providing timely and decisive air support to ground forces. All right. Rufi, good morning. Dr. Bati, good morning. Thank you so much for your birthday messages. Really grateful for that. Let's go straight to the stories this morning, Rufai. We have a number of things lined up. Of course, first of all, what's happening on international scene. EU has responded saying that they would take a diplomatic approach, but Trump is interested in his Golden Dome, and Greenland is part of that big plan. Then beyond that, let's look at the statement of vote of confidence in the president by the governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, the Senate president, and the dissenting voice from the PDP, and of course recorded successes by the Nigerian Air Force. Your take on these stories?
Okay. So this morning I'd like to tell history stories. Trump slammed a 10% tariff on the countries that don't support him in Europe for the EU. Countries like France and a couple of other countries that don't support him. He wants Greenland. What his allegations has always been is the fact that Russia and China is trying to take Greenland. Yes, Russia has research facilities around that area, I think on the Bering Sea and all of that. But there is no evidence that they want to take Greenland away from him. In fact, what is on ground is that there's a 1951 agreement about America using the base that used to be formerly in Thule in Greenland. And that agreement was also, they doubled down on that agreement in 2004, where there's a joint partnership. And America pretty much oversees things as regards the military base and all of that. Yes, another point is that it's not today he wanted to take Americans have been thinking of buying Greenland. I mean, I think after the Second World War, the American president Trent did offer some money for it, but that's not the way to go. But the history lesson I would like to take today is when America started fighting their revolutionary wars against Britain in 1778, it was just a couple of colonies and states that came together, and they were fighting the might of Britain. They didn't have the architecture and everything. So guess what happened? Because countries like France had lost to Britain in former wars, France came in and put in a lot of money in that fight. They didn't only put money, they put in their generals, the likes of de Grasse and Rochambeau. They put them in to fight for the Americans. In fact, in the Battle of Saratoga, over 90% of the ammunition that was used was supplied by France. France expended so much money in the revolutionary struggles, how America got independence from the UK, so much that it was because of that spending that France became bankrupt, and the bankruptcy meant that the King of France couldn't pay for activities and services in his own state, and those were the events that snowballed into the French Revolution. In fact, the story is being told of Lafayette, famous general at the age of 19, went out to fight for America's revolution. So this is to show you what has been done over the years. After America gained independence with Britain, one of the first countries that recognized them, Morocco, Sweden, a couple of other countries, then Denmark. This same Denmark, as of 1792, recognized America. The question I want to ask the hawks, the American hawks that believe American hegemony is key and they support Trump is, have you effectively paid back or paid France for the role that they played in the independence struggle of America? No, you have not. Does France have a right to collect? I mean, yes, okay, the government-to-government loans, but apart from other spendings and things, you didn't effectively pay rent. They did those things in goodwill.
All right.
The question is it now that you will now go ahead and slam France with a 10% tariff because they do not agree with your hegemony that you want to expand? All right. I think these are lessons of history we should go back to and tell ourselves the truth sometimes.
President Trump is going to the World Economic Forum event that is starting from the 19th to the 23rd. And one of the major addresses that we give tomorrow is about the spirit of cooperation in the world. Now, that summit is taking place against the background of a fractured world, of the collapse of multilateralism. And Trump, as the star guest at this World Economic Forum, is the main person who has even been responsible for the disruption. Okay. But one of the issues that will be on the table within the purview of the theme of spirit of dialogue is the rebellion, the protest of the European countries against Trump, saying that he's going to put 10% additional tariff, as it appears, on Finland, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, UK, and France, because of their resistance that Denmark territory, semi-autonomous territory of Greenland, is not up for the takes. And Trump says he will take that territory, whether peacefully or militarily. That's the issue on the table with regard to Denmark. The other day I gave the history of Denmark, talking about history. In 1941, the Germans seized the territory known as Greenland. And because of that, the US ambassador, Henry Kaufman, unilaterally, in the name of the king, decided to invite the United States to come and protect Denmark in that particular territory. And that became a problem because he was unauthorized. And because of that, he was classified as a traitor. However, in 1945, Greenland was regained by the Allied forces. And, it looks like Eric Kaufman was a man called The Good Traitor. There's a film to that effect, a 2020 film, The Good Traitor. It's about Eric Kaufman. And then he became a minister without portfolio. And it was at that time that the United States, got reinstated. And subsequently, the United States set up an air base in Greenland, Tall Air Base. Air Base, it is called. It is still there till tomorrow. However, what are the other historical issues? President Trump says Greenland is important for the national security of the United States. From the Arctic to North America is just like a hop. So America needs to secure that place so that it will not face any threat from that flank. The second thing is that the Arctic is very rich in rare earth materials. The same rare earth materials that the Chinese have refused to sell to the United States and to some other persons that they consider enemies. And now, third point is that in that Arctic region, both China and Russia, they've been deepening their cooperation. And the United States also sees that as a threat. However, the people of Denmark themselves, the prime minister, was just saying the other day, I think his name is Nommonsen, something like that. I don't know what I don't know the correct pronunciation. Was saying that if it comes to a choice to choose between Denmark and the United States, they will choose Denmark. And the people of Denmark are already demonstrating. There is a democratic congressional delegation from the United States that is visiting now, and the people are demonstrating. They say, we don't want. Now, last week, the Europeans, the same countries that are facing tariffs, they sent troops to the place, small troops, but symbolic, to say that we do not want the United States seizing Denmark. We stand with Denmark. And that is the state of play. So all of that drama is going to play out at the World Economic Forum in Davos. But Trump is saying, whether they like it or not, I will take Denmark. Because if he does not take it, Russia and China will take the place. That's the geopolitics on that topic, both the history and the exact geopolitics. Now, as for Governor Uba Sani, yes, Governor Uba Sani and Senator Akpabio have pledged allegiance to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Yeah. That should not be surprising. But I think what Governor Uba Sani has done is he collaborating, the Kaduna State government that is, with the Office of the National Security Advisor and other players to secure the release of the wife and the daughter of Reverend Achi of the Anglican Diocese of Kaduna, who he was abducted along with his family. He was killed, but now the state government has been able to, rescue the wife and the daughter. And Governor Sani is personally pledging they will provide them accommodation, they will rehabilitate them, they will give them psychosocial, support. That I think is commendable. As for Gbenga Olawepo Ashim, he belongs, he's a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party. You don't expect him to have anything good to say about the APC or President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Finally, the Nigerian Air Force, decimating bandits, terrorists in Borno, 40 of them were told. I think, again, that's remarkable. But it is a continuing job. The job has not ended. And what we have always said is that the Nigerian government should remain committed to fighting terrorists, bandits, or insurgents wherever they may be found.
Absolutely. All right. Very quickly on each of the stories. First of all, in Greenland, a few things and outcomes based on this. I think, like I mentioned earlier, one thing to note is that the EU is calling its ambassadors for an emergency summit to find perhaps a coordinated response to this announcement of a tariff based on their agreement or non-agreement to have a negotiation for the US to buy Greenland. And as we've already heard the history lessons, this is not a new development. It has taken years and years of conversations. However, President Trump's presidency is determined to have Greenland. What would this then be? The Danish Prime Minister has described this as blackmail and has accused the United States of blackmail. He also says it will be a threat to the NATO alliance because, as you would imagine, most of these EU countries are member states of NATO, which the United States is also part of, and they enjoy quite a cordial diplomatic relationship. So an outcome of this would then be what would then be the relationship amongst the countries in NATO. Beyond that, then would also be the rare earth minerals that what I was talked about earlier, and this dominance between America and China. Currently, China controls about 60 to 70% of the rare earth minerals currently, and the United States is also seeking for dominance. So at the end of the day, when we look at it geopolitically, it is a race for dominance and who would emerge. But I find it very curious that the United States, which has enjoyed great, cordial diplomatic relationships with Denmark, the United Kingdom, Britain, Italy in itself, many of these leaders said that they had conversations with Trump himself and they're looking for ways to sort this out diplomatically. But would Trump shift, or would he, like the Venezuelan situation, go hard if they don't go home? Important conversation.
Trade wars are never just about Europe and America. For Nigeria, they can mean higher import costs, pressure on the naira, and reduced access to key export markets. The big question is, will African leaders prepare this time, or react after the damage is done? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for deeper global political analysis.